Women educators are natural givers, pouring into their students, their families, and communities. But what about pouring into you? This is the Educator Sanctuary, where we help you ditch the guilt and unapologetically put yourself at the top of your list. I'm Dr. Leah, educator, mindset coach, and your guide to creating a life where you align with your purpose and reclaim your power. So if you're ready to set boundaries and step fully into the woman you're meant to be, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get into it. Hey, and welcome back to the Educator Sanctuary, the space where we have big conversations about mindset shifts, personal growth, and intentional actions that help us show up as our highest and best selves. I'm Dr. Leah, and today we are going to be talking about something that is going to push you to shift how you see yourself, your potential, and the action steps needed to get to your highest and best self. Here's the absolute truth. No one can expand beyond their level of their subconscious mind. At times, I know we all think that growth is about saying affirmations and just wanting more, creating vision boards. But as I talked about a little bit last week, and today we're going to expand on that, if your internal environment, meaning your beliefs and your thoughts and your mental conditioning, haven't expanded, then that means that nothing outside of you will either. So let's get a little deeper into it. Today, I want you to think of your mind like a plant in a pot. Now, stay with me because I know you're probably like, what is she about to talk about today? But I learned something during this thing called life, and plants actually helped me. Now, I feel like my first few plants, they were all this bad experiences. They all pretty much died on me, sadly. And for a long time, I didn't even understand how to keep a plant alive. It was so hard. Even if someone told me, hey, this is the easiest plant to keep alive, I promise you, some way, somehow, I would literally prove them wrong. But in the last few years, I have been able to start over from scratch and really just take the time to learn how to nurture plants and keep them alive, which I've surprised myself. I am so proud of me. But there was something in particular that I noticed as my plants started getting bigger. I remember calling my mom one day like, hey, mom, because my mother, now she has the green thumb, okay? Plants and gardening and just being this amazing person to nurture something alive, that's her gift. So I called her like, hey, mom, I have this plant, and no matter what I do, the leaves, they just keep turning brown. I didn't understand. I was watering it like I was supposed to. I was making sure that it had the right amount of light based on the instructions. I was really doing everything. And because I'm not experienced though, my mom asked me a question and said, have you repotted your plant at all? Now, imagine my surprise. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I thought you just put the plant in there, water it, give it sunlight, and just, let it thrive that way. But I learned that it is actually possible that a plant can outgrow its pot. And that is actually how I got here to this episode today, years later. And it is just crazy how this all came full circle. But she said if a plant is kept in a small container too long, it won't matter how much sunlight or water you give it because the roots can only expand so far. So once that plant becomes root bound, where it physically cannot expand beyond the space that it's in, if it stays there too long, that's what causes it to die. It's not capable of growing any further. That environment that it's in limits its growth. And that is exactly what happens to us. If we stay in the same patterns, in our same circles, and in our same mindset, we don't physically just die, but our dreams do. And our ambitions start to fade. The goals that we once had in our mind start to feel impossible. And then we just do what we call settling. We tell ourselves that we're fine with where we are because we don't actually see a way to expand beyond it. But the truth is that we're not fine. You are not fine. You're stuck in a pot that is simply too small. So then the question becomes, how do you repot yourself? How do you move into the environment that allows you to expand? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the 5 ways to expand your internal world so that your external world can catch up and you can live out your dreams and goals. This is definitely an episode you're probably going to have to listen to more than once. This time, just go ahead and listen to it all the way through. Don't worry about taking notes or anything. But this is definitely one of the episodes where I'm going to encourage you to go back, get to your notebook, listen to it again, and take some notes while you sit with yourself and think about this and the things that you need to plan out. So one of the first steps is to seek out spaces that are actually aligned with your growth. A lot of times we don't physically see the opportunities available to us. And because we can't see those opportunities, then we just assume that they don't exist, or worse, that we don't have access to them. But that could not be further from the truth. I am actually a really big believer that energy matters. And sometimes the first step to expansion is simply just putting yourself in the room, even if it's virtually. I have a lot of friends. They don't even know I exist, okay? But I have found so many people that I admire on social media that have become friends in my head. Some of them, I even at some point gained the courage to reach out to them, maybe comment on their posts, comment on their stories, just make a connection with them some type of way. And eventually we've had conversations in those DMs. Some of those people moved out of the DMs and now they're in my real world because I reached out to them. I put myself in a space where I wanted to be with people that I would not normally have had access to, but I used the resources available to me to get in the room with those people. Some of the opportunities that you have is to join an online or in-person networking group. You can reach out to people that you admire on social media like me. You can join professional associations where you pay a few dollars and you could be a part of their events or meetups. You have a local chamber of commerce you can look into. There's Toastmasters. Find very industry specific groups, but the goal is really simple no matter what you choose. And it's really just to get around the people that are thinking bigger and people who have attained or even surpassed what you're already working toward. Because the reality of it is, if you're not in the space, it's going to be mentally impossible to expand. You can't continue to have the same conversations with the same people and expect new results. Number 2, you have to actively work on your personal development. Now, you can't just read books or listen to podcasts, although good, and please don't stop listening to this one, but you actually have to apply the information. So think about it like this. If you walked into a room and you saw that your plant was withering away, like I have done on so many occasions, you wouldn't just Google how to revive my dying plant and read it and then just walk away. You would actually have to do something. You would have to check if the pot is the right size. Does it need more water, less water? Does it need to be placed to better lighting? Does it need less lighting? Does it need fertilizer? You wouldn't just collect the information needed to help your plant grow and thrive. You would actually act on it. And it's the same way with your own personal growth. You can read all the books that you want to read, but if you don't implement anything that you're learning, then nothing's going to change. Even if it's just one thing at a time, you have to be able to apply something, but also stick with it long enough to see the impact. For me, I've talked about it more often than not. I'm a personal development girly. I love a good personal development book or podcast or YouTube video. I could literally sit in my bed all day and just listen to personal development things and literally never go outside. For me, that would be a day living my best life. That said, if you're looking for some great books to read to get started with expanding yourself, there are 3 that I highly recommend. First and foremost, and I'm just going to put this out in the universe because I hope this happens, but I would love to sit down in person and have a chat with Sarah Jakes Roberts. She actually wrote a book called Power Moves that I love. I've listened to it. I have the physical book and the audio book, and it is just amazing. If you're trying to figure out what your purpose is, or you're trying to increase your confidence, this is the book for you. I actually like how she has stories in the book to explain how she got to that particular chapter in the book. There's action steps, prayers, affirmations. I just completely love it. I could probably listen to it 5 or 6 more times and just not even get tired of it. The other book that I love and think that is great for someone who is looking to get started with shifting your mindset is Believe Bigger by Marshawn Evans Daniels. This is another person that I wish I could sit and talk to on this podcast, so putting it out there. But this one is about stepping into your God-given purpose, especially when it feels scary or uncertain. She also has this little calendar that I have on my countertop right now, and it's a flip calendar. So it goes by day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way to like day 365. And on them are positive messages related to a scripture of the day. And this is my 3rd year using that calendar. I personally love how a lot of times I feel like it aligns with where I am in life. Like I get up and I go read it. I'm like, wow, this is so good. It either happened yesterday or today, or it's just a way that I'm feeling. I just like how that is happening. And now the 3rd book that I recommend is by yours truly. So if you have met me in the last couple of years, you may not have known that I am a published author and I have quite a few books out there. So if you go and Google, you're going to find them. But one of those books is called Minding My Own Heart Space. It's actually a 30-day devotional to help women reflect, heal, and grow spiritually. Highly, highly recommend. Maybe a little biased, but still. If you get one or all 3 of these, you would be doing amazing. It's probably all the essentials that you'll ever need to even just get through the rest of this year. Number 3, I'm going to talk about reprogramming your subconscious mind. And I'm going to talk about it in a way that I don't feel like people talk about it enough. And that's because when people talk about changing their subconscious mind, they talk about it all the time in the terms of just saying affirmations or creating vision boards. But while changing your mind sounds easy, it's actually one of the hardest things to do because the subconscious mind only changes through repetition. So if you only commit to something for a very short period of time, then it's a really high chance that you're just going to settle back into what's comfortable because that's how our mind works. One of the best examples that I can give of this is when I had braces. It was probably one of the most painful experiences I've had to go through and keep going through over and over again. I believe I had my braces for about 18 months or so. And then there's the retainer part that literally goes on forever. But when you get braces on your teeth, you have to have these repetitive appointments where you get what they call adjustments. Now, the adjustments need to happen because the teeth like to shift. And the teeth like to shift because they've been in a place for so long based on memory. And they're like, hey, why am I a little bit to the right now? I want to go back left to where I was. And so these repetitive adjustments over time tell the teeth, no, this is where I want you to stay. And so it's the same with your mind. You have to consistently make these physical adjustments in your daily life. A lot of times when we're talking about getting to our goal, most people actually only focus on the destination, the point where they want to be. But they don't do what's required in between, which is embody the version of themselves who actually belongs in the place that they want to be. But if you want to expand, you have to be able to learn to see yourself fully in that position, not just as someone who's working toward the goal, but someone who is already that person. For example, if you say, I want to be more confident in networking spaces, instead of telling yourself that you want to do this, you would visualize what this confident person looks like. What does this version of the confidence you sound like? What does this version of the confident you talk about? How does this confident person stand? What kind of conversations does this person initiate? What types of books does this confident person read? You actually need to practice being this version of yourself over and over again until this version of yourself becomes so familiar that it is you. You need to make consistent adjustments, and repetition is the key. If you do not continuously feed your mind this new image of yourself and continue to embody this new person, then your subconscious mind will default to what it has always been doing, which is keeping you stuck in the place that you're in. So we have to learn how to make those adjustments and move past where you are. Which brings me into a perfect segue to number 4. And that is actually creating discomfort on purpose. Because growth is very uncomfortable, but it's supposed to be. Very similar to what I just talked about with the braces, getting the adjustments were very uncomfortable. Something that I never looked forward to. I don't really think anybody goes into the orthodontist looking forward to adjustments because we all know it's going to hurt. But the one thing that we all have in mind is that one day we're going to get those braces off and our teeth are going to be perfect. They're going to be exactly how we wanted them. And so we deal with the pain knowing that there's a greater reward on the other side. This is pretty much similar to how our life should be. But unfortunately, many of us like to stay in situations because they feel familiar, even when they no longer serve us. However, you cannot expect to expand if you're constantly running from all those places of discomfort. Instead, you're going to have to learn how to invite it in. This could look like saying yes to opportunities before you feel confident or ready. It could look like having conversations with people who intimidate you, doing something new every single day or week or year that forces you out of autopilot. Shonda Rhimes, another person who I would love to talk to, she wrote a book called Year of Yes. I love this book so much. And in that book, she discussed where she did something for an entire year that she wouldn't normally do. Saying yes to things that absolutely scared her. Speaking engagements, new experiences, things that really pushed her out of her personal comfort zone. As a matter of fact, I ran across her TikTok the other day, and the TikTok made me feel so warm and fuzzy on the inside because after knowing what I know now by listening to her book, I know that starting a TikTok page for her was probably something very scary and uncomfortable. And I don't doubt that it's still not scary and uncomfortable, but she's pushing herself to do these videos. She's pushing herself to be out in the spotlight. And I just actually felt really happy seeing her growth based on how she spoke of herself in the book. Shonda Rhimes is someone who we already would probably look at as this big person who has accomplished everything. But it is a reminder that it doesn't matter how big we get, we will still have fear. But the job to overcoming the fear is learning to push past them every single time. And if that's not inspiration, honey, I don't even know what is, because in the end of that book, she realized that the fear that she had been holding on to was keeping her from fully living. And this is what stepping out of your pot looks like. Being willing to sit in the discomfort of growth. You do not get expansion without stretching. You don't get new opportunities without taking risk. So what is something that you need to start saying yes to? And what are the things that you have been avoiding because you think it's uncomfortable? Because you don't want to feel uncomfortable. Because you're afraid to lean into the unknown. And that leads me to step number 5, is move when you don't have all the answers. Growth does not come with a perfect roadmap. So many people wait to take action until they have every single step planned out. But that's honestly not how expansion works. That's not how faith works. Sometimes you just have to move forward even when you do not see your full path, trusting that your next steps will be revealed exactly when you need it, not when you want it. Something that I had to learn over my lifetime. And it has been worth it. If you have literally been waiting to make a certain move, consider that maybe you haven't made the move yet because God is waiting for you to trust him and not lean onto your own understanding. I know this because I lived it. I recently just spent a year of my life moving without actually knowing where I was going. I knew where I wanted to end up. I just didn't know where I was going or how I was going to get there. I was having daily conversations with people who kept asking me questions that I didn't even have answers to. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I should go. I didn't know what I should have. I didn't know what opportunities I should pursue. I literally had to trust God every step of the way and take steps even in fear, believing that every single time he was going to guide me exactly where I was supposed to be next. And that's the thing. Faith actually requires movement, stepping out before you know how it's all going to come together. Every successful person that you admire, they have stories similar to this. I love listening to people's personal success stories, but more than I want to listen to their successes, I pay attention to where they've been. If you listen to those stories very closely, you will hear that all of those people had moments where they took a risk, where they did something that scared them, where they lost a lot or everything, where they had to pretty much let go or leave things that no longer serve them in order to grow. And to be honest, I get it. When you hear stories like that, they're not always pretty. A lot of them are heartbreaking, but those were the exact moments that shaped those people. It is what I consider to be the shedding, the process of leaving behind what's comfortable so that we can step into our greater. And depending on how long we've stayed in these comfort zones, the shedding can be pretty intense. Sometimes you will lose so much of what was familiar to you that you might barely recognize your old self on the other side. But that's not the bad thing. That's actually the transformation that needs to happen. So the real question is, are you willing to take that step? Are you willing to do it even if it's super scary? Are you willing to do it even if you don't have the answers yet? Because one thing I know for sure, another title of a book that I'm reading right now by Oprah Winfrey, is everything you want and everything you are meant to be is on the other side of fear. And there's absolutely no shortcuts to get there. So as you know, this is my moment where I always give homework in the episode. And this week, I really want you to choose one area from today's episodes and take action on it. So whether it's putting yourself in a new space, whether it's applying something from a book or a podcast or YouTube, whether it's starting to say yes to something uncomfortable, whether it's doing something that stretches you, whether it's taking the step even if you don't know the answers, I want you to reflect on what it is you need to do to expand into your next level. Expansion is possible for you, and all you need is the willingness and the desire to stretch. Get into the right spaces, apply what you learn, shift your subconscious, create discomfort, and then align yourself with the right opportunities. That is how you're going to expand. I hope that helps. Talk soon. Thank you for joining me in the Educator Sanctuary, where we create a space for women educators to reclaim their power and prioritize themselves unapologetically. If you love what you've heard, please do not forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with other amazing women who need to hear this message. Until next time, remember, you are capable, you are powerful, and you are absolutely worthy. You've got this. Talk soon.